Fantastic. And we're still on time. Okay, we're delighted to host the first Cyber Tuesdays monthly webinar at the Dublin Chapter launch event here in Workday. We have about 80 people in the room in front of us that you can see online. We have another 200 people joining us on Zoom for the Cyber Tuesdays event. And we had a great first session here. We launched the Dublin Chapter. We had an overview of what they have planned for the year. We had a panel discussion around the opportunities to work together and around collaboration. And now we're going to host the Cyber Tuesday session, which has been creatively called Cyber Tuesdays, because we're going to talk about cybersecurity every month on the fourth Tuesday of the month at lunchtime. So it's a lunch and learn series. It's to get outside of the cybersecurity community in Ireland, to talk to people across the tech sector and the business community sector. So we partnered with a number of tech associations across the country, from Technology Ireland, IISF, ITAG in Galway, IT at Cork in Cork. So it's going out to over 600 organisations in the tech community around Ireland. We've then sent it out to all of the universities with undergraduate courses as well. Hopefully you can see me now. So that's going to thousands of undergraduate or postgraduate students. And the idea is we're going to have people from across the country, organised by our regional chapters, hosted each month, to talk about cybersecurity, the importance of it, to raise awareness, talk about the latest technologies and trends, how it's important for SMEs and across different sectors as well. So I'm delighted to hand you over to our Dublin chapter lead, Jason Flood from IBM, who's going to introduce the first Cyber Tuesdays monthly session around cyber careers. Jason, over to you.
Thanks, Owen. So one of the things we wanted to talk about, I think, to get us going for Cyber Tuesdays was, I always think it's very, very interesting to hear people's career stories and how they started and the colour that's in that. And also, you know, as we face into an economy where people might be looking at different options, there's massive skills shortage in cyber. We know that. You might find yourself with an opportunity to change career. And this might be a really great way to hear how people got into those careers. So just a starting point for people if they're looking for it. So we're going to talk, CISO is going to be covered by Liz Graham. You're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to be a CISO. Cyber threat intelligence specialist is Gavin Steve, right? So if you're interested in that, you should be very good. Cyber auditor Ross. I know Ross well. Sorry, people. Cyber education, Christina Thorpe. She's from TU Dublin. A long history with TU Dublin. There's some fantastic courses there. And cyber startup, Conor Flannery. Real startup mentality stuff. So we'll start with yourself, Liz. Over to you.
I'm going to stand if that's okay. Okay, so hi, my name is Liz Craven. I'm going to start by saying I always wanted to be a physiotherapist. That didn't work out that well. So in terms of, I know it'll be 5 minutes, but in terms of talking about the CISO role, I'm actually going to go back a bit now. And for some people in the room, and for people who are online from colleges, this year did exist. 1991 was a real year. People who were actually around that long ago. And that was the time in which I left school. And I went back I'm going back that far for a very valid reason, which is, like I said, I wanted to be a physiotherapist. The only reason, might fall out of the screen. Yeah, the only reason I didn't end up being a physiotherapist was down to the head nun in the school. I went to a convent school, it was an all-girls school. 1991, the Irish Defence Forces opened up the ability for girls to join the military in technical roles. And her exact words were, "You young ladies wouldn't want to apply to that." That is the only reason I'm standing here today. Otherwise, I would be in a hospital somewhere as a physiotherapist. So I'm going to start there by saying to anyone young that's on the call, it doesn't matter what course you're doing now, it doesn't matter where you've come from, your future is completely unknown to you. So I joined the military purely on pig iron because I didn't want to be told what to do. I did about a year and a half as an aircraft technician. I very quickly realised I'm quite bossy, maybe I could be in charge of something. And also the Defence Forces opened up the ability for women to become pilots. Wow, right? Now I could see Top Gun, flying suit, sunglasses, I was going for it. So I did, and I was successful for a while, until they asked me to land. And that is on a par with my parallel parking. So I decided to leave that. So it wasn't successful there. And then went back to the military and started all over again, third time lucky, and became an artillery officer. Again, nothing, well, in some ways to do with security, but not the security in this room that we're talking about. It was the big guns and way in the back. However, the Defence Forces give you the opportunity to go to university and do a degree where I did telecoms and IT, and that was the first introduction to IT. Fast forward 20 plus years, we won't count, Through the military, I worked in IT, and obviously security comes as standard with that kind of work, but it's more security around HF, VHF, satellite comms, rapidly deployable systems, not the pure cyber that we're now talking about. And I'll reiterate what Jason said earlier, the word cyber didn't exist. There was no cyber unit. In fact, in the first couple of years that I moved into IT, we were looking at buying firewalls, right? Which is not even, doesn't even come up on our radar now because it's so standard, it's so normal. So I stayed there for 20 plus years, traveled the world, did everything that everybody would love to do, and then decided, maybe a midlife crisis, I'm not sure, wonder what it's like on the outside, because I've been in now since 16. All I've ever known about is wearing a uniform, and I do pity the guys down there. That uniform might look nice, but it's hot, right? So it is difficult. So then decided to leave the military and move out into the private sector. My first step out into the private sector wasn't in pure security, it was in IT managed services. But again, that's 10 years ago now, and at that time, cyber and the whole area of security was starting to build. And once I stepped into IT managed services, the same company, they were starting to set up a SOC. So the next number of years were set establishing a SOC in that company, and then hopped to another company, did the very same thing. And then eventually ended up in a company where I am now, which is H&K International, which is like full circle, has absolutely nothing to do with cyber security per se. It's a manufacturing logistics company. But for me, it was the opportunity to become the customer of everything else that I've been selling up to them. I mean, I've done all the, when we talk about certifications, I have my basic degree, I've done a master's course, again, not cyber related. I've done all the various IBM courses under SIEM solutions, I've done CISM, I've done CJIT, all of these various different qualifications through ISACA. However, I decided I'd like to look at it from the customer's perspective. It's a very different perspective, trust me, than the one you're looking at from the sales perspective. And I moved into a manufacturing and logistics company. At the time, I was very excited. The company is called H&K. Anyone who knows weaponry, that's who I thought I was going to interview with. I wasn't, it was hospitals and kitchens, very, very different. And that company, like I said, is a manufacturing and logistics company, a global company. And in there, I originally arrived as CTO. And at the time, security was starting to become a conversation piece within the company. IT was still, while it was embedded in every element of the company, I think this is probably the same for a lot of, it's an old company, it's 50 plus years old. IT is embedded everywhere, but it's not really recognized, right? It does what it does. We don't worry about it. It continues to work. I think you mentioned accountants earlier on. It was accountant heavy, remains accountant heavy. I think most companies are. And the focus is on revenue. It's on making money. The focus isn't on IT until something goes wrong. When the key focus is on IT. IT at this point is in every single area of that business. There is not one area of the business that does not rely on IT for something. And if you're relying on IT, you're relying on the security of IT and the services that you deliver. So security has become a really big conversation piece within the business. So like I said, went in as CTO, graduated to CIO, and that just has morphed itself into CISO because I came with security qualifications and security knowledge. So again, I know I'm running on time here, for 5 minutes. So again, for anyone who's looking at becoming a CISO, I don't think, and I could be wrong, there's a direct role to say, oh, this is what I need to do. These 5 steps to be a CISO. No such thing. A CISO may come from an accounting background. A CISO might come from within the business or from a pure tech background. It really doesn't matter. It's more about understanding in terms of being able to translate. And there's 2 keywords, I think, for a CISO, which is translation and persuasion. Right? That's what I do every day. So every day I translate the risks that I identify in terms of a technical risk to the board in the language they understand. IP has a different meaning. It's not an IP address when you're talking to the board. That's a whole different meaning when you get up to a board. So every single word you use, you've got to translate it into business talk. And persuasion then is, well, we all know what that's like, budgets, etc. You've got to really sell those risks and you've got to persuade the business, the board, the exec teams in terms of what they need to do around security. We're in a really, really unique position now because there isn't a company in the world that doesn't recognize security now and how important security is. Because a lack of security or a small issue or failure in security can take a business down. And we've seen that. We see it all over the world now. So I think we're in a much different situation now than we were when I came out 10 years ago. So I guess I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to wrap up. And I'm going to wrap up by saying, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Great, I get to follow that. Thanks, Liz, for setting the bar. Hi, folks. I'm Gavin Speed. I work for Workday. I'm a senior manager here and look after the vulnerability management team. So similarly, I had different career aspirations, but unfortunately, 15 years ago, you know, full-time GA player for Tipperary wasn't an option for me. And so I had to go and do a degree in computer engineering in UL, and then I went working with my brother, who's a carpenter, for about 6 months. And when the winter came and I was up in a re-roofing a school in North Tipperary, I decided this really isn't for me. These hands are a bit soft to be hit with a hammer and cut with a saw every few days. So I actually started applying for jobs and to grow up and get into the real world a little bit. And I landed up in Dublin in January 2008 in a company called Ericsson. We were down in Dunleary at the time, but then moved into Clonskee. And I started as like a services engineer, so sort of like an integrator, working on a lot of like Unix systems. And with that role, I got to travel a lot. So I was sent out for 2-3 weeks, up to maybe 6 weeks at a time, to various telecoms operators around the world. So really great opportunity in my early 20s to travel, you know, companies footing the bill for a lot of these things. But I joined in like a security oriented team. So it wasn't actually called cybersecurity, and you know, cyber was a dirty word back when I joined. If you said it, like, you know, you shouldn't really. But got a lot of experience kind of being at the cold face of customer facing issues, you know, installing like network monitoring systems for telecom operators, selling security consulting solutions and things like that. And I spent about 6 years or so kind of on the road for Ericsson there. And then I kind of got sick of living out of a suitcase, and I took on like a line manager role working in the local market unit in Ericsson. And it was around the time we were doing the 4G rollouts for Vodafone and Meteor and O2 at the time as well. And I did that for about 16 months or so. And the reason that I did it is I wanted to stop traveling, I wanted to get a bit of experience in people leader roles. But I found, you know, about 12 months in, I was reading a lot of like InfoSec stuff, cybersecurity stuff in the evenings, and reading about like the latest breaches, the latest attack patterns, stuff like that. And I found like that wasn't really passion, you know, in like network rollout stuff. It was great, but it's not what I really wanted to do. So I was chatting to a buddy of mine then one evening who happened to be working for Zurich Insurance as part of their group information security team that was in Dublin, still is in Dublin, down Blackrock. And he said, well, why don't you apply here? There's open roles there. So I moved into Zurich and took over the Dublin security engineering team. And that kind of gave, you know, a bit more of a broader scope to do like hands-on security work with, you know, a group of security engineers. And by that, it was kind of fairly, you know, traditional enterprise stuff. So we mentioned firewalls, so it was upgrading like to the next gen firewalls that we all know and love now. There was installing new anti-malware systems and sort of controlling like, you know, disk encryption and all those annoying things that break your laptop all the time. So I did that for, you know, about 2.5 years, and that was kind of a global role as well. So, you know, got to work with various different business units around the world. It was all virtual, you know, but it wasn't much travel involved. But it was really interesting, and like, you know, I found throughout my career with all of these places where I was working internationally, either traveling or virtually, you really have to take into account like the local customs and how things get done in various different countries. It's not just send an email and something gets done. Everyone has different procedures and stuff. And then after I kind of had enough hands-on techie stuff with Zurich, I took a role in KBC Bank as like an IT risk officer, because I felt I wasn't, you know, as strong in the risk side of things as I was on the technical stuff. So when I joined in KBC, you know, there was about 4 or 5 in like the IT risk team at the time, and you know, IT risk was a bit of a misnomer because we did like the SOC and incident response stuff, as well as like policy writing, you know, risk management. GDPR was a hot topic, so we were pulled into anything GDPR related as well. General security dog spotting, I'm sure loads of people have kind of done that role. You're pulled from the post. And during the time there, KBC sort of looked at the IT security, IT risk role and expanded it, and they split out, you know, some of the functions into an ISO function, and then kind of made my team a lot more like hands-on security focused. So ended up running vulnerability management, running the SOC and incident response, and again kind of doing a lot more of the technical stuff like malware analysis as well. So after a couple of years there, I kind of got a little bit itchy as well. I've been in finance for about 5 years. Kind of wanted to get into something a little bit more technical, technology oriented as well. And there was roles in Workday at the time. So I applied again. It was kind of like an infosec manager, right? So very much doing all the things I mentioned before around risk management and exceptions and this DLP and all that. But quite quickly, obviously it was the time of growth in Workday, and quite quickly, vulnerability management became like a very important topic here, and I was getting a lot of attention at board level. So we had to split out the team to really focus on growing what we do in Workday with vulnerability management. And we kind of had a traditional program where did a lot of network-based scanning and posted results and hunted down people to fix stuff and all that. And since then, I've been able to grow the team into, we've about 16 now, based in 3 different locations. And we're doing some really interesting work. So Conor will tell you a little bit about what he's working on with risk-based analysis for vulnerabilities. We've got our own in-house stuff for that. And working on stuff like open source library vulnerabilities, and was doing any sort of development. You're pulling in a lot of open source stuff. And yeah, that can just be a minefield in terms of trying to keep things up to date and all that. So kind of fairly straightforward kind of career, I would say, in terms of coming out of college with a technical degree, around 6 months working on a building site that still stands to me these days. But other than that, it's been fairly straightforward, not nearly as exciting as this. So sorry to disappoint people for that. But yeah, just in kind of closing, like I really feel like that once you get out of your own little bubble and kind of talking to the folks from Cyber Ireland in terms of getting that different insights into how other people operate, what you can do to share information and help out, that really is what stands to you. And like I've had a fairly broad spread of different activities and responsibilities over the years, and I really found that that's kind of helped me in my current role, because you have to dip in and out of various different technologies and different people around the world as well. And that's how you get stuff done, is collaboration and working together. That's kind of my closing thoughts on it, and I'll hand over to Ross.
So back if I don't know where I'll stand. Hopefully you can see me. So I guess the first question that comes to mind when I was asked to speak is, why do I like cybersecurity? Why am I in this industry, and what do I like about it? I absolutely love finding out about companies. So I'm in the consulting side. So when I go into a company, generally I get to see how it operates, how the business works, and what's important to the business as well. So that really excites me. When I'm going into a company and do some reconnaissance of what it is I'm going to meet. But then when I'm speaking to somebody who could be a cyber audit, I'm down as an auditor. I kind of, I'm not an auditor. I kind of have done that in the past, but I'll speak to that as well. But definitely don't want to be classed as a cyber auditor. I'll put everyone to sleep if I talk about auditing. But I suppose why you like it is because it's exciting. You get to find out what a business likes, what's important to them, where their risks are, and understand their people and their culture as well. That's really why I love. In no other kind of, I suppose, IT related role do you get to see and talk to so many people in an organization, particularly if you're doing an end-to-end cyber maturity assessment, for example. You get to talk to legal, HR, compliance across the board, and you get to see how it's operating and essentially how these people interact, and particularly under pressure, things like incident response exercise and so on. That's really good fun, and it shows you kind of not only the politics of an organization, but how the culture operates and how well it's functioning and so on. So that's why I really like I suppose cybersecurity, and what really gets me excited about a new engagement and so on. And how I got to where I am, I guess, so I'm an associate partner in IBM and security services, working with Jason and across the team. I'm here about 7 months, 8 months, so I'm still figuring it out exactly. It's a huge organization, very, very different to where I've come from before. And I do like to change. My career has kind of jumped from a lot of different places. So coming back, so I've always had a passion for technology. My father was managing director of company called Zen Data Systems here in Ireland, and based out in Nace. And we always had kind of computers around the house. So this is kind of late 80s, early 90s. So we were always playing around with them, taking them apart. You'd get the dull ones that didn't work, you get to mess around with them. So just fascinated by technology. After I finished my leaving cert, there was the kind of the dot-com boom. I kind of wanted to do web design, so there was a lot of money in it. And when I finished a degree in multimedia, it had bust, so there was no jobs in it at all. So I took a job as an IT technician in NUIG, kind of under the desks, working with the labs, working with the students and so on. Really, really good fun, good way to understand networks, how to image computers, all that standard kind of IT service desk stuff, which is really, really good fun. From there, I got a job in Hewlett Packard out of their campus in Leeds for about 2.5 years, looking after kind of remotely Unix, Wintel support, that kind of thing. From there, I moved to Bank of Ireland for a more service management type role in the trading floor and global markets as it was at the time. In town, again, really tight knit team, looking after high availability service, very heterogeneous kind of technology stack, different kind of challenges day to day, and very kind of, I suppose, volatile in the clients we're serving, which were the traders. And traders, if you've ever worked with them, they're not a very patient bunch. So it was really good experience from understanding from a service delivery perspective, but also really, that's where I cut my teeth really in technology, and kind of understanding the banking technology that underpinned the trading applications to support what was important. And again, a bit more networking. I did a little bit around Oracle database administration, enough to get the OCP, I don't know what it was, the Oracle Certified Professional Exams, 11G or 9 or whatever it was at the time. Horrible. Realized I hated it from doing that because it's really, really painful stuff. And if you've gone through it and challenge yourself to do something, I kind of tend to challenge myself to do things I don't like. So just to see if I can do them and then get past them. And then you learn a lot about what you do want to do from doing something you don't want to do, is what I find, and that's stood to me in cyber as well. So a particular cyber audit, again, is an area that I wouldn't have wanted in any way to get into, but I found myself in consultancy firms where this is done, and I put up my hand first to say, okay, I'm going to go and do that, see what it's done, see if I can learn from it. And the things actually you don't like to do and apply yourself to, it's where you learn the most, and they're the skills you can bring to other engagements. So important, like report writing, for example. You can learn so much from an audit, from doing a number of audits, and how to hone and really clean up your language and really get to the right terminology, how you're describing something. So I'll kind of digress a little bit. But so from Bank of Ireland, that was my first kind of half of my career. So it was about 11 years in technology, from service desk, service delivery, and so on. Then I moved to a company called SPM. So I saw their logo up on your board. You need to change that. They're now BSI Cyber, so I'll get that plug in as well. So I worked for SPM in technical service delivery, but also at the time I just completed my master's degree in cloud computing, which is my second master's degree. And I pitched to the owner the idea of starting off a cloud assurance services division. This is 10 years ago or something like that. So it was kind of a bit of a nudge to point in the right direction, but it was very future focused. And I said, definitely, but manage the IT department, and you can do that on the side and see how you can grow that. So I ended up managing the IT department, the managed services division, and the cloud assurance, building out the cloud assurance division. So the most one you can possibly have, and learn so much from a consulting perspective. I got to do everything from penetration testing to not only doing the training for ISO 27001, but giving the training for ISO 27001 and so on. And so it was just a small kind of boutique firm, but really, really aggressively focused on the market and putting the customers first and being able to pivot into whatever the customer wanted. So very, very forward focused. They had the training division they were a 40-net provider amongst other solutions, and they had this consultancy wing which did penetration testing. They also had a forensics division as well. So it was a very, very well-run company in what they did, but you got exposure to so much. And again, like I said, putting your hand up to do everything at the time, to volunteer, to get involved and learn about how everything works. So it's really, again, that's how I cut my teeth in the cybersecurity side. From there, I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be as a consultant. So I moved to Deloitte, and I worked in Deloitte for about 4.5 years. And that's where I did get exposure to auditing, governance, risk, compliance, and again, the strong penetration testing team, their forensics team, and so on. But again, very, very focused, very, very driven team, a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, but that's where you learn the most. And so from Deloitte, I moved on to take over the security team at EY. And when I joined EY, Again, about 3 years ago, in and around that time, did a team of about 10 people, quite similar in size to Deloitte, but a very ambitious. They saw how big and what a growth platform cybersecurity was. So we were able to grow the team from 10 to 65 in about 20 months. So really, really aggressive growth during COVID. And this is all working remotely. I think we're sent home after 2 weeks in EY for the next 2 years, essentially. And we were able to do so much in that 2 years' time. There was actually not a second wasted travel and otherwise. So it was great. So it was, again, a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, and aggressive growth, not only in the size and scale of the team, but the service offering as well. So we were able to hone exactly what we wanted to deliver to the market, and it was very contextual based as well. So from EY, leading that team, leading that growth, again, what I wanted to do was to learn more at a larger scale. So I decided to join IBM Security Services, which is, I think, the biggest managed security service company in the world. Has a huge footprint in Ireland, but they're serving global clients for the most part. So as well, we're breaking into the Irish market at the moment. But essentially, it's just the size and scale and the opportunity to work on large global engagements and to serve organizations at a scale that's just up to the next level when you think about it from a geo level and what you do. So again, I would consider myself a cybersecurity generalist because I've dotted around and I've changed and I know a little about a lot, but I haven't kind of dived full into any particular area. So I do have a pain point that I'll share. It's the term cybersecurity expert. I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but if somebody introduces or is introduced as a cybersecurity expert, I think it's by saying technology expert. There's no such thing. There's just too many strands and variations of security to be an expert in any one thing. And I think even if you have a particular domain, there's so many strands of that. Even if you think about the term cloud security expert, for example, there's so many different interpretations of what that actually means that you shouldn't really be introducing yourself as an expert in any particular domain that has so many different strands to my interpretation. But that's why, conversely, cybersecurity is such an interesting area and a great area to be invested in from a career perspective as well. So so that's my role, my journey, and why I love what I do, and love the domain I'm in. So thank you very much.
Introduce myself. Hi everyone. First of all, thanks very much for inviting me to speak here today. I'm very honoured. So my name is Christina Thorpe and I'm involved in cyber from an education and research perspective. So I'm an academic in TU Dublin and I'm actually currently the head of cybersecurity, which is the head of discipline. So I look after the academic side of the house for the cybersecurity programs. So if we go back to the start, and similar stories to the rest of them, I had no intention of being an academic, no intention of being a computer scientist. I wanted to be a quantity surveyor. There was no real reason for that, except my best friend's dad was a quantity surveyor and they had holidays and nice cars. So I said, if I want to be financially secure, I should probably go into something like that. And I like maths, so I said, right, that's what I'll do. So that was from about the age of 7 until maybe a week before the CAO forms got filled in. And the dads of Ireland deserve medals because my dad said to me, would you not do computers? And in his words, he said, computers are the future. So, and this is a guy who still can't turn on a computer and probably back in 2001 didn't know what a computer looked like. But, you know, he was right. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so we had done some open days in 6th year and UCD was the only university that I had gone to visit. But I liked it. It's a nice campus. It was vibrant, big, exciting. So I said, I'll do cyber or computer science in UCD. So I applied for that in the CAO and fortunately I got my first choice. So that's where I ended up. So I started in 2001. It was the 12th of September. So I had spent the full day beforehand glued to the TV just like the rest of the world. Started the very next day. There was 6 girls in a class of 50 in the 4-year science or computer science degree. And I think there was about 75 by the time we finished because we had some people from science come in and we had some people from arts come in. But I was a denominated computer science student. So when we got to 4th year, we were thinking about jobs. The economy wasn't doing great. There was no one headhunting us for tech roles. So about 7 of us, actually some of my classmates actually with UCD computer science degrees went into recruitment. Some people went into health and safety. Some people, you know, did various other things, didn't go into tech at all because the economy just wasn't right for it. So a few of us, about 7, decided we'd continue our education and we'd do PhDs. So we could skip the masters. We didn't have to do the masters once you did well enough in your undergraduate degree in UCD. So I was supervised by someone for my fourth year project, and I just said to him, look, is there any PhD opportunities going? Absolutely, yeah, there's a scholarship, apply for that. So I applied for the scholarship, got it. So I got fully funded for the PhD. And you know, even then I didn't know I wanted to be an academic. I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I said, just go with the flow. And it was actually my supervisor, my PhD supervisor, who asked me to cover some of his lectures. You know, the first time he asked me, I nearly died. The thought of speaking out loud, like in public, to a class full of really, really smart people, just filled me with dread. So I was like, oh, I don't know, like I have to think about this one. So I did, I thought about it, but I, you know, at that stage I had experienced research. I was enjoying it. I actually enjoyed doing lab stuff with students. So I thought maybe it was something I could do. So I just had to overcome this fear of public speaking. So I did it anyway. And then, you know, after that, a career as an academic felt like something that was real and something that I could do. So that's the route I went. So when I finished my PhD, I was looking around for academic jobs, and I just had a baby, so I didn't want a full-time job. I wanted something that was part-time, something I could do. And ITB Blanchardstown were hiring for part-time computing lecturers, so I applied and I got it. And at the same time, my PhD supervisor at UCD asked me to do a postdoc. So I said, grand. So I ended up doing a postdoc full-time and teaching part-time for a few years. And when I joined ITB, Anthony Keane, so I think he's a fairly familiar name, he was very much a pioneer in terms of developing cybersecurity programs for third level education. Like everybody has said, the term cybersecurity didn't exist. At the time, it was information security and forensics. And that's what Anthony was driving. And he was one of the first actually in the country to drive this. And when I joined ITB, he brought me into his team. And that's where I settled. So I started then teaching, I was teaching on both sides of the house, so computing and cybersecurity. And then, you know, I was still doing the postdoc. So during the postdoc, I was getting to really exciting things, supervising PhD students, working with really nice companies like Microsoft Seattle, IBM Dublin, good relationship with them, IBM Tivoli, where we were doing lots of really interesting projects, publishing papers, writing patents, things like that. So, you know, really having an enjoyable time. And then in 2014, an opportunity came up in ITB for a full-time academic position in the cybersecurity discipline. So I went for that and I got it and I switched. So I became a full-time academic and a part-time postdoc because I still had some research students that I wanted to stay around for to finish up their degrees. So at that time in 2014, I took over the Masters in Applied Cybersecurity. So I took on the coordination of that, and we went from having one cohort of students to having multiple cohort of students to building that to having industry partnerships and so on. And what I really love about working and being an academic in cybersecurity, particularly in TU Dublin, is the huge kind of diverse student groups that we deal with. Because we have so many different pathways to cybersecurity education that we get to see lots of different profiles. So we have our school leaders that are coming in from CAO. They're young, they're enthusiastic, they're really keen, they've heard a lot about cyber. They're great to see that, it's great to see those develop. But we also have guys that are coming in to our part-time programs. We have part-time level 7, level 8, and level 9, which means you're getting people from industry, or you're getting people with just life experience that maybe have family commitments, that they can't do the full-time education thing, but they're there for the part-time. And what they're bringing to the class is this wealth of experience, and everyone's learning in the classroom, even the lecturer. So it really, it's great to work with those kind of cohorts. So we have industry partnerships as well. So we have one with Workday where we're offering cybersecurity, level 9 cybersecurity programs in a laddered approach, where students can do the cert, they can go on and do the diploma, and then they can go on and do the masters. We also have an industry partnership with Orange Telecoms, where we have students from all of their global entities across the world, and they come in and do the cybersecurity masters with us. So really exciting, really great to see. You're seeing students or people develop into cybersecurity professionals, but we also have the opportunity as academics to develop personally. And we do that through research. So we have the opportunity to do research, to kind of solve emerging problems, to generate new knowledge, to travel by doing that, because you know, if you publish your papers, you get to travel. This year alone, I've been to Brussels, Paris, going to Norway, you know, so it's a really good space to work in, really exciting, very dynamic, and really interesting. And just like every other sector, we also struggle. So very recently, I've become the head of cybersecurity. So I used to be the one giving out, we don't have enough lecturers, but now I'm the one trying to recruit those lecturers, and they just don't exist. It's very, very difficult to hire cybersecurity lecturers, or even anyone in tech at the moment, because the market is so incredibly hot. We have third years coming out and being offered massive wages that we just can't compete with. So it's very difficult for us. So we've graduated 2,000 students from TU Dublin in cybersecurity. We're looking to grow that. Currently we have about 800 students in the school, and we're trying to grow that number we have 800 students, and we're trying to grow to 1,000. But it's very difficult to just hire academics to be able to manage that. Like, cybersecurity is ripe for massive growth. Part of my role is operational stuff, but also strategic stuff. And we're trying to grow, but we just, you know, we're really facing the similar challenges that every sector is in cyber. But yeah, that's me. Just
That's great.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Conor Flannery. I am the CTO and co-founder of Citadel. Now, I know many of you probably haven't heard of Citadel, so I know it's a little bit of marketing, Jay, but I'm going to have to just sell the idea. So Citadel are an Irish cybersecurity startup. We were founded in late 2021. And what we do is we use threat and vulnerability intelligence to predict where your next cyber breach is going to come from, and then prioritize the fixes you need to make sure that that doesn't happen. I'm even stood up here in all my merch because my CEO is in the audience, and he handed me my jumper as I walked in and said, "You got to wear it on stage." So, you know, anything just to get a little bit of extra plug. I started my career about 9 years ago in Accenture as a technology consultant. And for anyone who doesn't know what it's like working as a technology consultant, Ross used the term generalist earlier on. I prefer handyman, because I feel like it kind of feels like that. You go in and you get to experience pretty much all of technology without having to leave your job. You can kind of move between clients, or even move between teams on clients. And you get to dip your toe in different areas and really kind of get a feel for what you like. And that's one of the things that I thought was great about working in Accenture from the start of your career in particular, is that you just got to experience that. So that was the first time I ever got to work in IT security. I became the team lead for IT security for Garda Síochána, which was a very enjoyable position. I got to really test out whether or not this was the career that I wanted to do. And after about a year of that, about 2 years of that, I decided to leave Accenture and move on and go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole of security and move into another consultancy role in Integrity 360. So Integrity 360 was one of the largest cyber consultancy firms at the time. Probably still is. So when I got in there, again, you're still a generalist, you're still a security generalist, as Ross alluded to become an expert in a specific field, you got to really, really go down the rabbit hole. And as I found that as I was going down the rabbit hole, you can start to see certain cracks in the system that are very embedded in the status quo. And you can start to notice that there are certain things here that could maybe be done a different way. And that was probably the early stages of me thinking about maybe becoming an entrepreneur. So I'll preface the next bit of the story by saying that I'm a very technically minded kind of person. The thing that really drives me is I like writing code, I like programming, I like tinkering, I like tweaking things. I have more unfinished projects in my GitHub probably than IBM do. And I'm always been a big fan of doing that kind of stuff. So I'm very experienced. I have a lot of experience with people coming up to me telling me that they want me to build their app. Essentially coming up and saying, I've got this fantastic idea that's going to make us millions. All you have to do is build it from scratch. So when you have that kind of experience, when people are talking to you about that kind of stuff, you tend to get very quick at digesting that information, tearing it apart, while nodding your head and going, yeah, no, sorry, I'm just really busy at the moment. I don't think I could take the commitment. And so when my co-founder, Matt, approached me about November 2021 and said, I've got an idea. He brought me over for dinner. We had the conversation. He discussed vulnerability management and some very specific pain points in vulnerability management. And he proposed a solution. And the first thing I remember thinking is, there's not a single hole I can poke in this idea. And I think when you're presented with that kind of option, well, you know, before then I'd never really thought too much about becoming an entrepreneur. But when you're proposed with an idea that you can't fault, and someone says to you, you can be a part of this, your brain decides incredibly quickly whether or not this is for you. It took me a long time to commit, but I know that I had decided very quickly that I wanted to do this. I'm a very risk-averse person, so going home and telling my wife that I want to leave my high-salary job to go and move into the startup world was probably as big of a surprise for her as it was for me. So my startup career started in June of 2022, last year. And I became CTO of a two-man company. When you are CTO of a two-man company, you are not just CTO, you are their head of sales and marketing and social engagement, and you give talks at Cyber Ireland conferences. So there's an awful lot to it. And you realize very quickly that prioritization is not just for vulnerability management. If you don't prioritize when you're in a startup, you can die very, very quickly. You have limited income and limited time, and every minute counts for you. So here's two guys who have never done this before, are experienced in our field. Matt worked with me in Integrity and worked with me in Accenture as well. So we both knew security very well, but we hadn't ever done a startup before. So you start to look for support very quickly. Our first advisor was a guy named Brian Reynolds. He's an ex-Microsoft executive, and he's worked with over 200 startups. And we used to have a weekly call with Brian. And on that weekly call, the very first thing Brian would say was, what have you done with your 168? And for the uninitiated, 168 is the number of hours in a week. And the reason he'd ask that is because he would say, I can get you staff, I can get you money through investment, I can get you clients, but I can't get you more time. So you realize very quickly that time is the thing that you're going to need in order to make this startup successful. So you look for a support network. And thankfully for us, we found that Ireland has a very good support network for entrepreneurs. The first thing was we joined the Enterprise Ireland New Frontiers program. And as part of that, that's an early stage startup accelerator. It kind of helps you get all of your thoughts from your head down onto paper, helps you perfect your pitch, helps you to build your network, and also which doors to open in order to, start to try and push your company forward a little bit more. So they helped us get access to local enterprise office grants, which was very, very helpful for us when we were a startup company doing a bootstrap model. And they also introduced us to companies like IBM doing the IBM Open Exchange. And we became a member of the IBM Open Exchange. And actually through that became IBM Tech Partners. We're also part of the Microsoft for Founders organization as well, which is great. Microsoft for Startups, because they give you free Azure credits in order for you to be able to host your applications. So all of that is incredibly helpful. And we were also lucky enough to be accepted onto the National Accelerator Program this year, the NDRC, and through that has just opened a myriad of doors for us through potential clients, other entrepreneurs who have already sold their businesses to places like Google, and potential investors as well. So very exciting times for us, and we're really looking forward to it. But I think the main thing I'm trying to get across here is that the support network is there, and every startup that has come before you is part of that network as well, or wants to be part of that network. There's not a single founder that you go and talk to that would say, no, I'm not interested in having this conversation with you. Everyone knows and everyone's felt it before. So it's very hard to condense all of this down to 5 minutes, but I'm just going to finish with an anecdote, something I heard recently, and that really stuck with me. I think it's going to stick with me for quite a long time. So when Orson Welles directed Citizen Kane, he was interviewed afterwards. He was 25 when he directed Citizen Kane. And there was an interviewer who sat him down and asked him a question. The question was, what gave you the confidence to take such technical risks when directing this movie? Because he had done things that no one had ever done with camera before. And Orson's response was sheer ignorance. There's no match. There's no match for that kind of confidence. And he said, it was only after I'd already done it that people told me that it was supposed to have been impossible. And for me, trying to build something, that really stuck with me. And it was only this week, but it's going to continue to stick with me, I think, because I love that. It's incredibly easy for you to get bogged down through the thoughts of all the startups that have come before you that have failed. And the knowledge of that failure can be an incredible burden. It can stifle your creativity, and it can take what could have been a fantastic idea into a failure compared to something that was just people thought was impossible that needed to be proven. So here's that little bit of ignorance in every entrepreneur. Thank you very much.
Thanks guys for coming today. I think one of the things that I thought was really cool, actually, by the way, I love founder mentality, by the way. It's so right on. And one of the things we heard is there was like, when myself and Owen sat down, we were like, what roles do we get? We wanted to look for roles that were aspirational in the cybersecurity industry. Like CISO is a goal, phone building consultants. These are roles people want to go for, lecturing and all that type of stuff. So we wanted to get down, and what's really interesting about the stories, as they said, is there's no straight line. And I think that's really, really important. And I guess what I'd say is technology can get you to the table, but it's soft skills that get you across the line. And that's a really strong message. And everyone's talked about the networking they built. I mean, you mentioned about 5 companies, yourself as well. You're building up an army of networks for students, right? So I think one of the things with Cyber Ireland it brings is it increases your network. It increases your ability to be able to find out about those companies, find out about the chances you need to take. These 5 people put themselves on the spot today to talk about their careers, but I mean, everyone's got a story. We'd love to hear your story. We'd love your story to maybe help someone. You've got a founder journey. You might have someone, I'm doing a PhD. I'm considering becoming a lecturer. What are my options? What does a career look like? Ross will tell you why not to be in audit. We don't know. But listen, thanks very much. Owen, I'll hand it over to you. If you want to finish.
That's perfect. So thanks very much for everyone joining us online. And the next Cyber Tuesdays is going to be on in April, hosted by our West chapter. And we'll finish it up there if you want to finish.